Alright, let's say this is you. You go out in the spring, you take your lawnmower, your pressure washer, your anything with a similar engine to this on it. You go out there and you pull the handle down or turn the throttle on and you pull it like this. And you've checked there's gas in it and checked there's oil in it, and this happens. And it doesn't start. Don't go on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and thinking this is blown up and it'll never run again. Just do these couple very simple steps and it should get your equipment running in the spring again. So, the first thing you should do is take off your air filter housing. Alright, then once you have your air filter housing off, this is mainly a video about just these types of engines. They're made by Briggs & Stratton, and you can tell by the spark plug going into the engine like this, and the spark plug wire like this, and the front of the engine is flat with these fins. They are mostly all the same. And then the next thing that you would want to do is take out these 3 bolts right here with an 8mm socket. It's also an 8mm socket right there. Take all 3 of them loose. Right, and then once you get those 3 bolts off, you should be able to pull this off. And there's that pops off of that little hose right there. And then there is your thing called the carburetor. And that is the choke, which helps the engine start when it is cold. But something I like to do at this stage before I take this all the way off the engine to replace it or clean it is take some of this stuff called starting fluid and spray it inside the carburetor, just like that, and then turn it on and pull the engine over and see if it starts. And just like that, the engine started. Might take a couple pulls, but that's all you need to know. So that means our carburetor needs to be cleaned or replaced. So usually what I do next is pull the fuel line off right there, which you will need a pair of pliers for. So you grab this hose clamp, there's the 3 prongs on it right there. Take it like this and it squishes, and just move it back. Then make sure this is loose from the carburetor and slowly pull it off. And usually I don't pull it off all the way, and because you're dealing with a situation like this, I would take a drain pan and drain all the old gas out of it. And then once you take your fuel line off and clean out and drain out all the bad gas, I usually take a 13mm socket on a ratchet and take the nut on the bottom of the carburetor loose. Usually just a little loosening turn. That's just like that. And then grab the drain pan again and get it under there and take that bolt the rest of the way out with your hands. So then when you take that nut out, you'll get something that looks like this out of the bottom. And then you can just pull this off too, and that gets all the rest of the gas out of the carburetor. And also try not to spill gas all over your floor onto your leg. Alright, and then once you're done with those steps, you'll be left with something that looks like this, and you need a 10mm socket to get both of those bolts off. something I forgot about that you want to do first is take off these 2 Phillips head screws. Right up here, off. Those should just come loose pretty easily. And then you can take this off of the engine. And then you need to get this bolt off right there. And then to take this off, it is a 1/4 inch socket. And it's super simple. Just loosen it. And it starts to come off. Just, you can loosen it by hand. The rest of the way, it's just a little more difficult. Usually, what I like to do is just take the socket off of the ratchet and spin it like this by hand. And then, just like that, that comes out. And don't be careful not to move this around too much. Just make sure it's pulled off of the carburetor, just like that. Then you want to grab your 10mm socket. And then once you have your 10mm socket, put it in here, in between here until you get on the bolts, and give them a loosen. And then these ones come loose pretty easily. And then take this by hand and take them the rest of the way out. There's one. And here's the second one. And then take your carburetor off, and it's connected to that linkage. You want to pull it down and turn it like this, and then it should wiggle off the end. And that's why I tell you to take the bottom off of the carburetor, so you can drain the gas out, because when you tip it, it'll start to pour everywhere. And then that's your carburetor right there. You have a choice of either trying to clean this or replacing it, which I'm going to do because there's rust in here, and I've tried cleaning it once already. So you have a couple options for replacing these carburetors. You can get an OEM one, which are usually really expensive, or you can get a cheaper, and then you have the really cheap aftermarket ones, and then the kind of mid-grade ones, and I'll put in a couple screenshots of how they cost right here. And that's how much they cost for the super cheap ones, the ones I like to use, and the OEM ones. And the brand that I have found works and runs the best on these small engines is this HIPA brand, and this is the one for this engine, 799866, which will be for your 190cc, 6.75 horsepower, 6.75 series. And another thing I like with these HIPA carburetors is they usually come with every single part you need. Like, it comes with a new O-ring for right here, which we will replace, so I'll just pull this one off and set it aside, and a new air filter cover gasket, which goes right there. And then you get one of these fuel filters. I don't recommend using these because you can see right through them like that. They are pretty much junk fuel filters, so I'd recommend just going like this with them and then throwing them away. And then only reason really why you bought this why you would have bought one of these is for the carburetor, of course. So here's the carburetor, the aftermarket one. It's obviously doesn't look quite as good. It's not as good machining, I guess, but it should get the job done. And something I'd recommend doing too is just with these carburetors, move both of these and look and just make sure everything's moving properly. Which that one is, just like the original one. Just like that. And then we will take this new O-ring. Here's the new O-ring. I'll compare it to the old one. They're the same size around. This old one is just squished because it's probably been on there, squished by that carburetor for good 10-15 years. So I'll take the O-ring, and there's this little raised part right here. I will just put it on the outside right there and use my finger to push it all the way in. And then you'll take your carburetor and connect the governor linkage just like taking it off. So you will put the carburetor at an angle and get the hole lined up. This is a lot easier to do with two hands, but you get the hole lined up, push it on, and then turn it up. So like that, I got it on the first little spot right there, and then turn it up. It might be a little difficult, but once you got it, should turn the throttle, and you can lift it up and push it onto the where the O-ring is, and make sure your screw holes line up, which hopefully they will, and then take your 2 bolts right here and thread them back in. Alright, and then once you got those 2 bolts back in, take this one that goes through the choke linkage here, push it all the way through, pull out the choke linkage, and make sure it goes in to the hole for it in the carburetor. This is also a lot easier with 2 hands, but I just got it, I believe. I'm gonna do it with 2 hands real quick and turn the camera back on. Alright, and then once you got this tight, make sure this moves around easy. Just push it forward with your finger and it should move back and forth, and then take the throttle here and make sure that moves easy with your finger too. Just like that. It probably will have a bit of restriction on it, but it should be relatively easy. So then the next thing you want to do is hook up your fuel line. Super simple. Just get the hole in the end of the fuel line on that spot on the carburetor and just wiggle it back and forth, and it should slide right on. And then grab your hose clamp with your pliers, get it on there, let go, and then your hose clamp is on, everything's on, and then take your air cleaner thing and take the old gasket off. If you want to, you can reuse it, it would be fine, but since I have it, I am going to put this new one on there, because why not? So just slide it on there, nice and simple. Lift this up, make sure you get that hose aligned with that thing, and push it on there. Should line up, and then get your 3 bolts back in there. Then once you have those 3 bolts on, grab your air filter housing with your air filter. You can replace your air filter if you want to, but this one's pretty clean, so I'm just going to reuse it. Get that on there, push it up, hand tighten this bolt until it stops, just like that, and then grab your same 8mm socket, tighten that up, or a flathead screwdriver, or I believe a coin would work in there too. And then take your plastic shroud and slide this back on top of your engine. And make sure this plastic tab goes underneath the fuel tank right there, and it should sit right back into place. Then take your Phillips head screwdriver and thread these back into their home. And then just like that, you have installed a new carburetor that should work perfectly. So the next thing you want to do is, if you're inside now, bring it outside. And then once you're outside, fill it up with 91 octane, no ethanol gas, which is what you want to use in all these small engines. That should be enough. And then just usually take a look, make sure there's no gas leaking, which it appears there isn't. And then you should be able to take your pull cord, give it a pull, and it should fire right up. Just like that. And that's how you replace a carburetor on a flathead Briggs & Stratton.